You're listening to Digital Employee Experience, a show for IT changemakers. Let's get into the show.
Hello, changemakers. Welcome to the show. I'm Tom McGrath. On today's episode, while Tim sadly can't be with us, we do have two wonderful guests in John Grainger and Dan Morton, both of them from disruptive law firm Slater and Gordon, and recent recipients of a coveted CIO 100 award. Gentlemen, warm welcome to the show, both of you. It's great to have you on.
Great to be here, Tom, and I'm sorry about your colleague being poorly. I had listened to a few of the episodes, and
he was the one you wanted to actually talk to. Yeah.
He was actually the person I wanted to speak to.
I completely feel that. I feel bad about it, but we can rest assured he's fully vaccinated. He's in no danger. He's going to be okay.
Speedy recovery.
Quite right. Dan, great to have you on too, sir.
Thanks, Tom. Yeah, it's always nice to chat to you. So thanks for the invitation to join.
My pleasure. Listen, I love talking to you guys because I think for part of the reason anyway, is because in terms of digital disruption, the legal industry is a really, really interesting one. But also, I really think your team approach the workplace and technology in the workplace with the fullest possible amount of creativity and intelligence. So let's start with you, John. You're CIO at Slater and Gordon. Please begin by telling us something about your background and where your outlook comes from.
Sure, and Tom, I appreciate that's a very kind observation you made there about us. I'm very proud of the team and everything we're doing. First thing I say before I talk very briefly about my background, is your point about the legal industry. It actually predates the Industrial Revolution. So the legal industry was in full flow before the first, the Industrial Revolution. You pick up the literature now and we talk about our fourth Industrial Revolution. And I suppose, none of us are quite old enough to be able to span that period of time, but it'd be interesting to see how much the industry really has changed from those early days. And as far as I'm concerned, so I'm in my fifth year in the legal sector, and prior to that, about 20 years in delivering and selling technology services. So really moving to the other side of the table. And my first opportunity was at a global law firm in the corporate law space. And now I'm in Slater and Gordon. We are the biggest, consumer legal services company, and extremely exciting time to be in that space.
Indeed, we're going to come right back to that. But just to say hello to Dan again quickly first, right? You were already at Slater and Gordon, I recall, Dan, when John joined, and I know you've been a big part of the subsequent journey. But I wonder if you could just tell us something about that background and what that shift has been like and how you'd characterize it.
Yeah, sure. Well, I suppose to set the scene, I've worked in service management roles within law firms for all of my career, not quite as far back as John talked about, but certainly 25 years in law firms, seen quite a lot of that change. And then just more recently, but before John joined, and in the recent firms I've worked for, we always followed the ITIL framework and always used traditional service desk processes to manage demand in terms of incidents and requests. It's just always been an uphill struggle. And in the past, like most companies, we've never had enough resource to focus on problem management. So we always struggled to reduce the incident demand and could only really focus on getting our support team to work through tickets and just keeping our heads above water. So actually, it's when John arrived, we were able to take a different approach. And we just have a much greater focus on automation, problem management, end user experience. And we've been able to get to a place where we can focus on more valuable work rather than just manage a backlog within a support queue. So I suppose just to give you a little bit more on that one of the key changes was moving from a service desk phone line and ticketing system to a tech bar approach, where instead of logging a ticket and waiting for a response or a callback or just waiting on hold for an analyst, instead you book a virtual tech bar session, and it just allows you to get the right level of support at a time to suit you. The lawyers can do it whenever it suits them. It's really, really working. We've got a great NPS score, Net Promoter Score. It's very positive. It's 86, which is great. And we've also introduced lots of automation to reduce the need for support. And this transformational shift to automation, problem management, and tech bar started pretty much on day one when John arrived. But prior to that, it was almost absent, some of that good stuff.
Amazing. And we're gonna drill down into some of that detail momentarily. But I'd like John just to have a quick think about the legal industry at large. I mean, is it fair to say, I'm obviously commenting from a very external place, but compared to some other industries, its kind of evolution of its digital disruption, if you will, is relatively young. And it's therefore has the potential still for really, really enormous change. Is that accurate?
Yes, yeah. So again, just back to that point about the fact that the industry started before the Industrial Revolution. The other thing is it's very much an industry that's focused on the professional knowledge of fee earners, and the industry has really sort of centred around that, giving out that professional knowledge, and therefore it is a human-centric industry. Where the expertise is provided by the human, and I'm not saying that that's not going to change in terms of having the requirement for really gifted and expert fee earners, but the focus is going to change to be more around the consumer experience. So if you look at the legal sector, a lot of law firms are also run by the professionals that also give out the advice. So the entire mindset is around, I would say maybe can be at times a little bit introspective. And if you're the layperson in the street, and typically, we use a lawyer once every 7 years, so most of us as regular consumers, it's a complete mystery as to what will happen, what's the process, and all the rest of it. So when you go into that process as a consumer, there's a huge opportunity to make that a completely different experience to what you get in the majority of interactions today. I am talking more around consumer experience, consumer legal services,
Sure.
but I think having got some experience in the corporate space, I think it's applicable across the whole sector. So if you want to take a parallel to this, just think about when online e-commerce started, and people saying, well, hang on a minute,
Exactly.
Nobody is going to substitute the experience for being in a shop to being online. And obviously very early online portals, there was a stark comparison between that and being in a shop, and also our own terms of reference, our frame of reference was being inside a shop. That's what everyone said. So clearly, we can look back now. That's changed quite a bit. That's happened, I think. Is it fair to say?
I think that's fair to say.
Amazon, I think that really happened.
Yeah.
And then the second one, so maybe the lawyer would look at that and say, okay, that's great, John, but we're different. We're regulated.
Yeah, people like going to the shops. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's right. And
a joke,
actually,
guys.
let's be really clear. Lockdown aside, there's still a big space for going to shops, yeah? So actually, it's changed it, but it hasn't removed shopping. So the lawyer might say, well, that's all great, John, but, we're regulated. We're different. There are rules and there is compliance and there are there are things that we have to go through. Well, now we can just bring in online banking, the finance space. When was the last time anyone, again, we have to kind of discount lockdown.
Sure.
But regardless of lockdown, who's been in a branch or a bank?
It's a closer analogy than shopping, I'd say.
Yeah, because of the regulatory side of things.
Of course.
So really, it's a case of, well, why isn't the legal sector just running towards this? And I think it's because it's actually a very disruptive thing to do. Mm-hmm. And if you're in a scenario where you don't feel you need to have to do that, then you won't. A lot of the way law firms are organised in terms of partnerships, the governance structure might not lend itself to saying, hang on, guys, let's turn things on their heads and deliver services differently. So that's part of what we have at Slater and Gordon. There's a huge dollop of tech in there, but on top of it is also the intent and the strategy to disrupt. And we're pivoting around the consumer and what the consumer needs rather than what the lawyer wants. So I suppose if someone said to me productivity, the first thing I would think about would be automation and how smooth we can make the consumer journey work. Whereas if you wind the time back 5 years, when I first heard about productivity in the legal space, the first thing you would think about was, how can I get the lawyer's day to run smoother? I mean, Dan, you've seen both sides, but do you know that sort of productivity that's really centred at the lawyer rather than productivity that's aimed at the consumer and being able to go through a process. And Tom, before I don't want to get people panicked that it's just going to be a computer experience with no interaction. There's some really important philosophies that you can take with automation, and broadly you can go down the creative automation route, or you can go down the destructive automation route. Destructive automation is get rid of everyone's jobs and just have a computer running everything. I mean, that isn't going to be good for society. It's a bit of a dystopian future. Our shout line for tech, which I think you may have heard us discuss before, is work anywhere, automate everything. And then the really important word at the end is the word create. Yep. So we're doing creative automation, and the idea being that the lawyer can gradually transfer the work they do into the creative space rather than in the micro decisions and the filling forms and the kind of the bureaucracy side of it. So we're actually using our automation to create a much better experience for the consumer, but also maybe a bit more in line with what the lawyer was thinking when they did their degree. There's more exciting element of the job. Does that make sense?
It really doesn't. Would you see an analogy between the kind of future of a tech professional and the future of a legal professional? No? And the potential effect of creative automation on them both?
Yes. Yeah, really interesting. Because if you look at, the essence of maybe what the essence of law is a series of rules or interpretations that you have to apply to a particular scenario. Just at that very high level, that's very, very similar to the goal within automation and within technology. So the key point is that there is still a very important demand for human interpretation, creativity, but we're able to perhaps spend more time on that side by doing the automation in the other areas. In fact, that's what a lot of the research is saying, that automation will really push us all through a shift where in our week we're going to be doing more of the slightly more intensive creative stuff than having that mix of some boring and then some creative, which is interesting in itself, because if we all think about the three of us on this call, there are moments in the week, I think, where some of us do like to, do something a little bit boring to have the space. So there's all sorts of implications on how we'll work and where that will drive us to. And
listen, I don't know if this is going out there too far, but could we almost go so far as to say that the law itself is a form of software? Just a thought.
Yes, yeah. It's there is, and again, I have to be really absolutely clear to anyone who's listening to this that I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a legal specialist.
This is not legal advice you're about to hear.
This is definitely not legal advice. But there is, I think, in continental Europe, the way the legal framework works there is a bit more rule-based. So there's a sort of a codification. I think it goes back to Napoleon. So there's sort of codified law. And so you've just got elements of that which could be interpreted quite literally. What you've got in the UK is a little bit based on it's not as simple as this, but there are sort of cases, and you look at precedents, and you draw those together to see if you can draw conclusions, for an outcome. And the difference being is that the tech is growing so quickly that we're going to get into the space of being able to use technology to look at similarities and patterns within precedents as well.
That's interesting.
But that's not where we're at all. And there's probably quite a lot of contemplation required before we go down that avenue. What we're actually doing is what I'm calling micro decision making, or in sort of AI parlance, it's called AAI, which is applied AI. So this is where we can make small decisions on whether a case, should proceed to the next step, should go, from this point to this point, or whether, on a probability basis, we should have the human in the loop. The human in the loop is the point where the pattern that we're seeing says, actually, this really does make sense to bring a lawyer in. And
Right.
if you look at the computer's ability to consistently look at patterns and make decisions, there's a real strength there in automation that we don't have as human beings. But then, you have the computer providing the pattern and then suggesting, and then the human can go in and use their experience. So yeah, it's quite a deep one. This I don't know how
We've plunged in, haven't we? This is great.
Yeah, we go straight for it. But I think it's important because what we're doing in tech, in the tech teams and the teams that Dan runs and that I run, is I'm a huge believer that we have to practice what we preach. And so, in, where is it? Just seeing, 7 days from now, we're going live with a self-service, portal for road traffic accident, minor injuries, but also the process can take you through with any kind of injury, and then it will decide whether you can continue in the sort of the online self-service model, or if it's a more serious issue, you drop out to to a lawyer to speak to. That's something that we think is going to be a great experience for our customers. And so I've said to Dan, if it's good enough for our customers, then self-service and the automation we're bringing there, we should absolutely be bringing inside, because it's a great point for everyone within Slater and Gordon to experience how good self-service can be. And it's, it's self-service and automation. And to bring us back into the kind of I was listening to one of your episodes, Tom, the next thinkers, to bring us into the next thinker space.
That's what we called.
If that's what you guys say. So I would say I'm a next thinker from time to time, particularly when I'm listening to your episodes. If I don't know if there's an application process required.
You're an honorary next thinker,
John. Much appreciated. But that is what allows us to, your platform is allowing us to get those insights, so that Dan's folks, rather than working on the really humdrum, logging incidents, speaking to the service desk, finding things buried in queues, are actually straight into being booked at a time that's convenient for the lawyer to discuss more like, how can I get more out of this app? So it's a direct mirror. Do you see what I mean?
I really do.
Although you could argue, lawyers would say automating, in their space might be more complicated than automating in our space. I'd dispute that, actually. I think there's things that we do that are actually quite complex. And then if you look at how the Next Think platform is developing, the fact, the relationships that it infers and the use of machine learning, etc., just shows you how far you can go. So it's very, very exciting time to be in tech and to be in the legal space.
Brilliant stuff, John. Thanks for that. Dan, let's drill in then into what one of your employees might experience that's different at Slater and Gordon to another firm or just another industry even. Starting with their present day onboarding experience, what stands out to you as potentially being quite novel and distinct in what they'd encounter?
Okay, well, I think, like most companies at the moment, our new hires join us and start working from home immediately. And there's some challenges there that we hadn't really faced before. Again, historically, they would appear in the office, they'd have their desk set up, we'd have the computer ready, we'd have tested everything, and we would drop by in person on their first day and check that they're having a good technology experience from the start. But the pandemic changed this, so we're having to do all of that work virtually, which means shipping out equipment that's ready to go straight out of the box as soon as it arrives. And we do a virtual tech bar session with them to help ensure everything's okay, from day one, and they can be productive straight away. But actually, and critically, we're paying a lot of attention to how well people are connected at home. And it may sound obvious, but we've found that fiber broadband and a wired rather than a Wi-Fi connection really gives people an advantage. So we have to add that consideration into the onboarding experience too. But what's great about it is that we used to hire people within commute distance of our offices, and obviously now we can recruit anyone from anywhere in the UK. And I suppose their only limitation is the quality of the broadband. But I suppose in addition to that, we've had to be a lot smarter in the way we set up our new starters in terms of access to various systems, It was always a very manual process to set up the various accounts they needed. And the support analysts used to create every set of new accounts and configure them. And it would take them hours. It was always prone to mistakes because it was so detailed and lengthy. And that resulted in issues for the end user down the line. And their experience was often impacted quite early in their journey with Slater and Gordon through technical issues due to the account creation. So obviously, automate everything. We've automated around 90% of the new starter process, which saves on analyst time, eliminates that failure demand that's generated by manual processes. And as John said, it gives the IT analyst whose job used to be just mundanely setting up user accounts all day, every day, that's gone, that work's gone, and they can focus on more interesting things. So that automation and the change there has had a real positive impact on the end user experience from day one when you join the company.
And let's look at problem solving, both in terms of, first of all, problems they might not even know about, and how Slater and Gordon gets ahead of issues rather than just waiting for them to become a problem.
Yeah, well, it's a good point, because again, with historical support processes, the end user and the support analyst typically had to have a conversation on the phone about the technical issue, and obviously created a whole bunch of technical translation problems, misunderstandings, dead ends in the problem solving process. Or the alternative is for someone to get physically in front of a PC and their hands on a computer or a laptop to work through the issues with it. And that's all quite hard to do remotely. So now we use telemetry data from the Nexthink service, and the data provided by the Nexthink collector, we see evidence of the issues right there, and we can take action. We know we don't have to have that conversation that's so prone to misunderstanding. We've got it in the data.
Yeah, and
saves a huge amount of time.
Sorry to interrupt, Dan. I was just going to build on that. I think it's really interesting that a lot of us had hunches and intuition about what was wrong. And I put my hand up. I was one of them. And there's nothing like a set of data to put you in your place. You know, we all had to move into that remote mode. We had the work anywhere strategy before lockdown. But we were only really sort of just into it. We were fortunate. I think I said, Thomas, the best time to do your IT strategy is 3 years ago. So we were well underway and we could take advantage of that. But nonetheless, we went from 6 offices to 1,800 micro offices. And a lot of us were sort of saying, what's going on, with this change? Is it related to that upgrade that we did? Is it this? Is it that? Some really strong views as to what the problem was. And like I say, the evidence, I don't want to go on about wired versus wireless, but it is quite incredible how many things get sorted if you stick with a wired connection.
I believe it.
Lawyers love it, love evidence as well. And I think, Thomas, we mentioned this before, where someone said, look, John, I don't believe you because I can watch Netflix at home. There's absolutely no issue whatsoever. So we had to kind of bring in, we couldn't just refer to the laws of physics. Sadly, that wasn't enough. And to show the evidence and the correlation's been very powerful. And you stop apologising, you can get on with things and make an actual tangible solution. And it moves us all on, because it moves us on into, right, now, how are we going to become more connected? What's the next area that you can work at? If you can't get your remote services, you'll just stay in that mode. You won't be able to have any kind of conversation with the business unless you get that cleared.
I want to move on to my next question, which is always one I look forward to asking when I do get to talk to you guys, which is, what's on the S&G roadmap for the next 6 months? What's coming next?
Dan, do you want to go first?
Well, I often find it's easier for John to talk outwardly for the business and I inwardly for the IT team. I think for me, it's the IT team escaping its bounds, really. Not just working on technology experience. In fact, I do much of my work with a team that comprises HR, technology, facilities, data compliance, internal comms, and we're all working to provide a great workplace experience rather than just a technology one. And an example would be, I mentioned the sentiment analysis in Nexthink. We can ask people how things are working on their computer, but what if we used it also to capture the sentiment for, their feedback on the office environment, their general sense of how productive they feel in any given time. So rather than just having IT analysts reacting to technology sentiment, you may eventually have HR analysts reacting to other emerging workplace issues. But yeah, essentially, we want to lead the way on technology service management, but also on enterprise service management. And we want to get shared services involved using similar technology like chatbots and tech bars and tech bots. These sorts of things would benefit all the teams, not just technology. So I think that's my focus for the next half of the year. Yeah.
Cool. And so what I would say is the technology that's coming out isn't slowing down. It's getting more and more exciting. Absolutely everything connects with everything else. So we've got this kind of exponential growth of possibilities with tech. Then we've got coming out of lockdown. So work anywhere isn't just work from home, which it's been during lockdown. It is literally lots of different contexts. How to create a pop-up conference session, how to work on the move, how to be secure, this sort of, augmented reality, being able to, you can see some of it in the consumer platforms with Apple, where you can look at the screen and it can project certain things that are contextual. There's a huge amount, I think, coming out in micro decision making, so to sort of applied AI. And what we have to do is we've got to move the tech folks into that space, because it's putting all those things together. We're going to come up with some really interesting mixes of use of tech, and that's going to save our employees from having to work it out. The other thing is to move down the route of what's called hyper customization. So it's the ability to give very tailored experiences to everyone, but do it in a way that's very scalable. And so rather than just giving everyone, this is your desktop and you're just going to have this set of applications, we're able to provide something that's much more customized, but do it in a way that we can still keep the integrity of the desktop and the performance and all the rest of it. So we're in there's so much ahead of us in the tech side. I mean, how long are we going to carry on writing for? You look at the transcription services from just if any of you guys use Microsoft, and if you look at the market statistics, it's likely a lot of people listening do use Microsoft, but the cloud version of Word, for example, and its ability for dictation, it's really powerful. And if I say Alexa, I said it quietly.
She's shy.
I said it, so things didn't go off. But if anyone's got one of those consumer devices, it's funny, isn't it, how I start to whisper because
she's sleeping.
She's sleeping, yeah. But it's so articulate, for how you. So I can imagine one of those skills, I think they're called, as a means of actually contacting us as a consumer law firm. And actually, if you can do that, then why can't I ask who? Because I'm saying who because in the room, to ask for a tech bar session. It's seriously so doable, but you can't do it if you spend your life calling people up who can't make phone calls, and looking at queues and doing repetitive password resets. And that's I started out my career early doors on the service desk. It wasn't the Slater and Gordon service desk, as it happens, but I was on a service desk, and you learn a lot of that sort of visceral experience about all the talk and what is the actual experience going on. I think we're in an amazing time for moving all that forwards.
Well, I think that's a magnificent note to end on, John. Guys, it's been a genuine joy to have you on the show. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Tom. Really appreciate you spending the time with us, and really enjoyed it. And I'm on catch up a little bit, but I am working my way through the series, and it's a very, very exciting set of podcasts you put together.
Thank you so much. Glad to hear it, Dan. Great to speak to you as ever, mate.
Thanks, Tom. It's been great. Thank you.
Fantastic, guys.
To make sure that you never miss an episode, subscribe to the show in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcast player. And if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, make sure to leave a rating of the show. Just tap the number of stars you think the podcast deserves. If you'd like to learn more about how NextThink can help you improve your digital employee experience, head over to nextthink.com. Thank you so much for listening. Until next time.